So basic about the heart, the action potential. You guys probably already understand a little bit about this. The heart, the cells depolarize, causing sodium and potassium to influx and efflux, and that causes the muscle to contract, causes the actual electrical activity in the heart. All an EKG is, you guys, is the tracing of this electricity. That's it. Okay, it's not. I know they sometimes are pretty intimidating, but all this is squiggly lines on a piece of paper that measure that little bit of action potential, that little bit of electricity. This is no different than if you took a bomb or just a tannerite explosion and you put cameras all around it. All, you know, had 12 different cameras filming all at the same time from different angles, and then shot the tannerite and it went off. And you go and look at each camera, the video is going to look a little different, right, from each angle. That's all these leads are is catching that electrical potential from a little bit different angle. That's it, okay? And if you kind of think of the EKG like that, it might all come together when we talk a little bit later, and you're going to be pretty much like, you're going to be like, I got EKGs. I'm not worried by them anymore or threatened by them at all, okay? Super important to remember is where this stuff happens at within the heart. This is test question material big time, okay? And so where does, one of the things I recommend you do, you don't really have notebook paper, is to make yourself a basic diagram of the heart, which is going to be a kind of an oval shape, then take a line and cut it into fourths, okay? And that way you can label your ventricles and your atrium. So here we have the right atrium. Right up here in the right atrium lives your sinus atrial node, your SA node. That's where the heart starts its beat, okay? Because that's where the heart starts its beat, that's going to be the first little electrical blip you see on your EKG. That's the P wave. Okay, so if you look on your EKG you got on your desk and find a P wave, that P wave is just this part of the heart firing. That's where it starts. And that's why your P, Q, or S complex on your EKG starts with the P wave, because it's the first area that depolarizes. Then that electrical charge goes here to the AV node. Okay, the AV node resides right there. Does anyone know the purpose of the AV node? What it does?
To back up for the SA node.
Okay, kind of, sure, that does. Okay, it relays the information, but what does it do? It slows that conduction down, because the SA node fires, causes atrium to contract, causes everything to happen. If it just went slamming through here, you wouldn't have any time for this to fill up with blood. Yeah. And as you guys are going to learn, if you haven't already, you need these chambers full to pump well, right, to get good cardiac output. So the AV node causes the conductivity into this part of the heart to slow down, okay? So if you think about it for a second and put this in your mind, just think about it. If you have problem with your AV node, if there's a problem, let's say this part of the heart doesn't get good blood flow, and you knock out the AV node or you cause a problem to the AV node, what might that do if the AV node is not working properly and the conduction now can't get through the heart? So the electrical input can't get through the AV node. Would the impulse be allowed to continue on and the rest of the heart to contract?
They start firing by themselves.
Yeah, they could start firing by themselves, or you get a block. Exactly, the electrical impulse stops. That's an AV block. You're going to learn about that in a minute. Those are testable AV blocks, right? Type 1, the Mobitz, Winky Bach, you've heard those terms. Those are testable things. And that's where that happens, right there. And it's simply an AV block, so you're not missing it. It's simply the conduction through this area isn't working well, okay? Now, I'm oversimplifying it. You guys met Dr. Garner yesterday, who's actually an electrophysiologist of the heart. This is all he does is study this stuff, and he could probably go into so much detail, he'd have all of our heads spinning. But for your test, what you need to know is that AV node delays conduction through the heart, and when it's not working right, you get heart blocks, AV heart blocks, okay? And we'll talk more about this. So then that impulse drops down into this area and through here, the interventricular septum, and is spread out through the heart via ththese Purkinje fibers, okay? And then that causes the depolarization of the ventricles to contract and send blood either to the lungs or out into the body, all right? Does that kind of make sense to you? So we got our P wave. That corresponds with this contracting, the SA node. This PR interval, okay, that's from here to here, and we'll talk more about that, is simply the time it takes the electricity to get from here and start the ventricular contraction, the PR interval, okay? We'll talk more about that too.